But I mean, you just can't substitute that one-on-one interaction. That you really need that kind of thing where, you know, you sit down with someone and, you know, they say, oh, hey, I noticed you're doing this. Maybe you should change that technique. You know, I guess one other aspect though, and I do promote this a lot even with, you know, my students, I tell them to get together with other groups of players. I mean, you'll a lot of times you can learn quite a lot of stuff from just hanging around with other decent players. You know, they might show you something really unorthodox. I remember years ago, someone, I was hanging out with just, you know, jamming, doing some jamming. They showed me with, you know, putting my thumb over the bass end of the neck, and they said, you know, hey, you can actually, you know, make a chord this way. And I'd never had anybody show me that before, and I didn't learn it from a teacher. I learned it from somebody else. But for critiquing and stuff like you're getting at, like things to avoid, how to correct bad habits and avoid bad habits. I mean, you could watch YouTube videos and stuff, but I mean, you kind of need that one-on-one thing with another person to have interaction. I mean, the internet's great, but it's very like one-sided. It's like, you know, like right now I'm just, you know, talking to a video cam here and stuff, so you don't get a chance to interact. Anyway, I got time for one more here. This one is from Alex in Miami, Florida. It's kind of a long email. You know, I got to apologize, Alex, if you're watching this and you find this. You know, I kind of condensed your question, but anyway, your question here, you know, when I record, I don't get the right tone on the computer as I have on my amp. How do I set up to get the tone on my amp to sound the same on the computer when I'm recording? And what's the best way to record a guitar properly, but also, and this was the catch here that I thought was such a good question, but also the cheap way. Well, actually, you know, I'm going to be talking about this in my podcast, just to plug the podcast coming out on January 17th. But you know what? There's some great gear. Let's talk about that cheap and, you know, basic setup at home first. I'm a really big believer right now in these Apex microphones. You can get these nice condensers. They're the 185s, so Apex 185s. They come as a matched pair. Really nice condenser mic. I'm using them right now, actually. I've got one on a boom right above me. Really, really nice mic, and they're fairly inexpensive. They're about 90 bucks or 100 bucks. Yeah, excellent investment there. And then as far as a mixing board, you probably heard me say it over the last year. I've switched over to Mackie now. I'm using the Mackie boards. I really like, you know, for the basic cheap ones, I've been recommending to students to pick up that 402. It's just a simple 2-channel. Excellent mixing board. And again, actually, I'm using that right now in the studio here. So we've got the Mackie running with the mic. The next product I'm going to mention to you, I have to say I'm not using here in the studio right now, but it is the ART V2. It's a USB connector where you're going like, you know, because everything I just have been talking about was analog. And then when you're going digital, you need to convert that analog signal to be able to pop it into your computer. So I've been recommending that ART V2. It's an analog digital converter box. It's a sweet piece of gear, and it's cheap too. It's about 60 bucks. That Mackie board I mentioned, that little thing is about like 90 or 100 bucks. So all in all, maybe for just under $300, you're going to pick up some great gear, and you're going to sound really nice. Now into the computer, of course, for Macs, I'm a big fan of Logic. It's a reasonably priced program, works great. I know a lot of professionals using Logic too, so it's not some kind of fly-by-night program. It's a great program. For Windows-based, I'm a huge Adobe Audition fan. I've been using Adobe Audition for years. I have it on pretty much every computer around here. So excellent program, whether you get the old one, the 1.5, or if you get 2.0. I noticed that they've made some upgrades because I do have it on one of the machines around here, and on my laptop that I do a lot of mixing on. That laptop has the new one, the 3.0. Just brilliant little piece of software there for both recording and mixing and mastering. It's fantastic. Now, in your question though, Alex, you had mentioned how do you get the same tone on your computer as on your amp? Well, there's a lot to that, and probably even too much perhaps to talk about in a video here. But basically, I'll give you some pointers. About 50% of it is kind of like mic placement and of course quality of gear. And then the other 50% is what you do with that signal once it's in the computer, because you're going to have to edit it. I mean, you're just taking, you know, like a snapshot of what really is going on in the room, because remember, in the room you've got all the acoustics that you're dealing with, but then when you get in the computer, you've maybe got this, you really captured this area of perhaps about 6 to 8 inches of sound just around your amp. So it's going to sound different on the computer than when you're actually you know, playing live in the room on the amp. So through some simple filters that you can use in EQing. You can usually just use something like even an 8-band or a 10-band EQ in your audio editing suite. You can usually use that to nicely tweak out your sound and bring up whatever highs or lows to get pretty close to that room sound. And then, you know, once you're there, man, then the sky's the limit. You know, then you can add on some nice reverbs. You know, I tend to keep things pretty simple. Like, I use some very simple delays, simple choruses. I'm not big, into flanger. I consider that a specialized effect. I don't use it really all the time or anything. But of course, some of those nice digital reverbs, some nice basic sound, not too wet. That's an excellent way to create a really great sort of big sound once you get your recording into the computer. And another cool trick that I use quite often is I record multiple tracks of the same part. So let's say I've got a melody that I'm playing, right? I would record it once. Let's just say I make up something here like let's say I have a little melody statement like that. I would record that, once, as part of my tracks, and then I would come in again and I would record over top of it. Sometimes I'll even record not just unison, but I'll record over that. I'll record like an octave part. And one thing I should mention about that is that's a great effect to take when maybe you've played your let's say this statement came up in a verse, just for argument's sake, let's just say it's a verse of a song. Well, you can come up on the second verse and then maybe add that octave on. So there's some really nice tricks, and then don't forget there's all the elements of going into other intervals. So you could take the line and play it in thirds, or you can try fourths or fifths. It's sort of sky's the limit once you're doing multi-track recording. So you can really make some nice recordings if you're aware of some of these ideas. Both, of course, conceptually on the neck, and the other side of it is how to kind of beat the computer into the sound. Because of course the computer's sound, like you'd mentioned in your email message to me, it's not the same as the room sound. So you're trying to sort of find that happy medium. So anyway, hopefully that's helped you out a little bit there. And I gotta say that's about all the time I have for today. So thanks for watching, and thanks for sending in all the great questions. I just wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff with the questions. So thanks a million for that. And also thanks to everyone who donates. I'm just blown away by the donations. I really appreciate it. It's a little bit of work now doing all of these videos, and I just get motivated every time someone sends in a donation to the site. I can't express my gratitude enough for that. And of course, also to all folks who will purchase products. It's just making the internet thing for me just expand and expand, and as this goes on, it's going to get bigger and bigger. So really appreciate all that as well. Now, remember, of course, my first MP3 podcast will be up on Monday, January 17th, 2011. So be sure to check that out. There'll be a post, of course, on my website. I'll make a Twitter announcement, and there'll be an announcement on Facebook as well. And until then, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.